Welcome to One Girl at a Time, a podcast for girls, by girls, with girls. I'm Hajid.
And I'm Umayma, and we are here to spotlight on the power that girls have in this world.
We have a special announcement. For today's World at a Glance, we're going to talk about what we're doing to support and empower girls.
We will be hosting MDA's Mu Delta Alpha's 6th Annual Summit for Girls this February the 20th. We will be having inspirational speakers, and it's a summit for leadership, specifically for girls. So the speakers will be talking about their experiences, their journeys, and will be inspiring girls. Our goal is to empower girls to make a change and be involved. So we will be having giveaways, raffles, and so much more.
For me personally, this is actually going to be my 5th summit. I've gone to 4 in the past. Those thankfully were in person. However, this one unfortunately is going to have to be virtual due to safety reasons, but I believe it's going to be just as fun. We have so many amazing speakers lined up. We have great activities, and Umayma and I are hosting it, as she already said, and we have a segment of our own that we are doing during the summit, which I believe is going to be really exciting.
It's going to be super fun.
And for more information about this year's summit, check our Instagram at ogatpodcast or at Mu Delta Alpha on Instagram, and we hope to see you there.
Okay, so now introducing our very special guest, Sofia Nehal. She is a student at UNT and is majoring in psychology and is planning on being certified in rehabilitation studies. So she has a self-published book called The Sunflower's Moon, which we'll be talking about today.
First off, we wanted to say we are so excited to have you on our podcast today, Sophia.
You guys are excited. I'm literally so excited. I've been waiting for this. I've been so excited and pumped up for this. I've been literally counting down the days. I have it written in my calendar, and school actually started for me this past Monday. So I'm like this was my motivation to get through the first week of school. I was like, oh my God, if I pass and get through this week, I'll be able to see these cute ladies and their whole vibe, and I'm just so excited to be here. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I'm so pumped up.
We're really excited to have you, even though it took us a while to get here.
Yeah, we had to reschedule and all that, but we're so glad to have you.
So we want to start off by having our listeners know more about you. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So as you guys said, I'm a student at the University of North Texas. Go Eagles. I love that school. That school is literally my home. I absolutely miss it because I don't live on campus anymore. But every time I'm doing school, and it just reminds me of back when I was actually on campus, and I'm just like, oh my God, crying. I miss campus so much. But I am a senior. I'm planning to graduate this spring, inshallah, hopefully, if everything goes well accordingly to plan. But I'm also aspiring to go to graduate school as a personal goal for myself. I want to either research and behavior analysis, or I want to get my MBA. I haven't really decided on which path that I really want to go to more, because it's more I want to do both at the same time, but that's not possible. So I really just want to get to a point where I just have to pick and choose, if anything. And I know for myself personally that I'll be missing the other one, but I'll be happy with whichever one works out best. I'm also the vice president for a couple organizations. I'm vice president of MSA here at UNT, and then I'm vice president of the Pre-OT Club, which stands for Occupational Therapy, which is a great club. I love the people there. I love the vibes, and I just miss it all being all in person, I am a self-published author. I just published my book back in November, which was pretty eventful, pretty exciting, if I do say so myself. It was something I've always been wanting to do. And yeah, I'm also an entrepreneur. I am one of the co-founders for Kismet by SS, which is also really exciting. So I'm almost everywhere, basically.
That sounds awesome. About your book, The Sunflower's Moon, how did you come up with the title?
So it's actually really interesting. I don't know if you guys remember, but I would say like the pre-stages of like, quarantine where everyone was just like, we didn't really know what's going on and we didn't know if it was like a government hoax. We didn't know like, is it really bad as like, the news outlets are saying and things like that. So, everyone was getting into their gimmicks and hobbies like, either gardening or, um, fitness and things like that. So what I love gardening, right? I've always been like a gardener, like since I came out the womb, basically. Even growing up, I would always garden and like grow plants and whatnot. I still do occasionally now, but when I had to move to campus, I like, I didn't have like a whole backyard to grow anything, right? It was just like my tiny like apartment balcony and that was it. And then most of everything, like, it was just like things that we can't use, just like, basic plants. And so when I came home because of the pandemic, I was like, you know what? I'm going to grow everything. I'm going to do everything that I've been missing. It was like a passion of mine that I really missed. And so one of the flowers that I actually was planting was sunflowers, and they're actually one of my favorite flowers. And so I was actually really hesitant about growing them because usually whenever I grow them, they don't survive that long, or there's always just like, some issue with them that they don't survive or they don't just grow to the full capacity as they're supposed to. So I was really hesitant about it, but I was like, you know what, I really want to grow them. And I remember like when I was trying to come up with the title for the book, like but the sunflowers, like I was just sitting outside my doorstep and the sunflowers was actually sprouting. And like it was like where, it's like it's not necessarily like the sun's almost gone, but it's like the sun and like the moon also, you can see like the crescent of the moon. And I don't know, something just hit me where I was just like looking at the sunflowers and I was just like looking up at the sky at the moon. And I was just like, oh my God, like the sunflowers, like this is perfect. I don't know if that was a sign, but I was just like, this has to be the title. Like out of everything I came up with, like I wrote that down in my journal and I was like, this is it. Like this, I don't care what it is, like this is it, right? So that's how I came up with the title. It was really silly and like I just like it. It's like a mystery. Like, what is the sunflower's moon? Who is the sunflower? What is the sunflower referring to? So I was like, this is perfect. I love it. And I love mysteries too. So it worked out perfectly, if anything.
It is a beautiful title, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Like it's
Thank
so like
you.
mysterious, but then also like it just fits your book so well.
I like how there's like room for interpretation. Like whoever like reads the book, they can like, you know, choose a meaning for it however they will. So it's cool.
Yeah, I really tried to like nail it for like any type of reader, whether they've experienced like similar experiences as I have, but like it's for anyone to read it and to like just be like, wow, like I really like feel this, and it's really strong and powerful.
Yeah. We definitely felt that when we were reading the book. So yeah.
So our next question is, when did you realize that writing a book was definitely something that you wanted to do? Like at what point in your life?
So I've always wanted to write a book. And so whenever I was growing up, you would always find me in a library, like whether the school library or the public library. I was always somewhere like chilling, reading a book. Always. Like you can ask any of my family members, like I would choose a book over anything. I still love reading, like especially because of quarantine, I was able to like, catch up on all of my favorite books, novels, manga, anything that you could read. I would read, right? And so I was always a big reader. And, growing up, I've always dreamt of having my own library in my house, which, like, as I grew up, I'm like, oh my God, that's going to cost me like millions of dollars or something like that, right? But I still like, that's like a dream of mine to have like my own library. But growing up, I also had this dream where I would write my own book and that book would be in my library. And so in college, like I was like, you know what, I really want to like try to get this childhood dream accomplished, right? And so, when you think about like, oh, how do you write a book? Like, where do these people go to write a book? Like, if you go on Google, like, it's not really going to help you because you're going to have to do your own self-research and figure everything else by step. And like, there's so many twists and turns. And I feel like once I actually did it, now I learned so much out of it that if I didn't actually go through with it, or if I didn't even try to publish the book, I would have never learned the things that I've learned out of it. And so the whole idea of it was I wanted to write a book because it was a childhood dream of mine. And then I also wanted to inspire people and to share the experiences that I've had, growing up, especially in like the States and whatnot as like a brown girl, because it's very different. Like you can read books like based off of like, different colored people, just different ethnicities, but sometimes you won't be able to relate to them or like, because of their different environments or experiences. So I wanted to make it very open where anyone, anywhere could read it and they could somewhat understand or even feel like what I felt, right? And so like I did that, and I like once I actually did it, I was like, wow, I really did that. So, and I got to accomplish my childhood dream. So like, it was like an always like an all-time dream for me, and now it's done. It's accomplished.
So, when you were younger, you talked about writing a book. Did you, excuse me, did you think that this was the type of book that you were going to write?
Actually, no. I always thought I would write like a novel or some type of like nonfiction book or a children's book. So this was like way off, something different than what I had ideally had meant thought of when I was a kid. Because I thought like, oh, like I'll just write like a children's book and then everyone will just love it or whatever, right? But I ended up writing like something different, and I feel like this was like a type of it was just like a piece of me, so I felt like it was more real and more open, so people would read it and they'd be like, okay, wow, like this is literally a piece of her. And so I felt like since now I'm obviously much grown and I've experienced so much more things since I was a kid, and I just felt like this type of book was much more meaningful, and I had to do something like this rather than like do like a children's book or anything like that.
That's really like, thank you for
Inspiring,
sharing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, our next question is, obviously you're a self-published author, so seeing that book in physical form, publishing it yourself should like have some crazy feelings. What feelings did you feel when you finally published it?
So when I finally published it, it was actually before I published it to the public, I asked for a proof copy, which is just like an author copy. And so that copy you can't actually like sell to the public. You're just able to just see like, how it looks like in like a real form, whether like besides like, digitally and just like a Word document or anything like that. And so when I got my first proof copy, like I actually didn't know what it was. And so like I like it was just like in this ugly brown package, and I was like, this is so ugly. What is this? And I didn't know it was that, and like it didn't have any labels except like my name and my address, and I was like, what is this? Like, ew, this is ugly, right? And so I opened it like in my room, like I was just by myself. I opened it and I realized like it was my first like proof copy, and I was just like it was unbelievable because I was super like half of me was like super emotional, half of me was like super excited, and then like there's like so many mixed emotions everywhere where I was just like, oh my god, this is it, like this is the real book. Like I was like on the verge of tears. I was like contemplating, oh my god, like who do I show? Like, oh, should I go show my family? Like who's even at home? Who should I show first? Like I was just super pumped up. I was taking pictures of it. I was like, this is my baby. It came in the mail type of thing. I was super excited, super emotional. I think I even cried about it like afterwards at night. I was like, oh my god, like this is my baby, right? But I was super proud of myself, if anything, because um it's not just writing about the book and just getting to the end and just seeing your product in your hands and you're just like, wow, I did this. It's more like going through the entire process because it's hard, like as doing any other project, like you have to go from start to finish. You can't just go from the middle and then you just somehow finish, right? And it was just like a very long, eventful, very dramatic, like type of process, just going through and figuring out on my own, because I did it all by myself. I'm a self-published author, so I didn't relatively have any help or guidance. So most of the time it was just like me and my research trying to figure out what to do. So when I finally got it in my hands, I was like, I did that. I went through step 1 all the way to step 10, and I really did do that, right? And so that was like a very like big game changer for me, because I was like, wow, like I did this. Like, I can do anything now, basically, you know? And I was just like, I have to, like, publish this for the public, and like I want to help other girls realize that, um they can also too write a book. It's not hard once you do it, and especially once you get through it, you just feel like you're on top of the world. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was on top of the world, and I still feel like I'm on top of the world when people are like, "Oh wow, like you published a book." And I'm like, self-published a book. Like, you have to like toot your own horn sometimes. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. I really did that. And some people, they're like, oh, wow, like, you actually did that. And I'm like, yeah. And like, it makes you emotional realizing that you went through like all of that hard work and it actually does pay off. So it was really, really nice.
So let's get into the content of the book. So something that kind of stood out in your book was about how you connected it all to your faith, and it was beautifully enveloped, by the way. And could you tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you like touched upon mental health?
Yeah, and so I've always been one who was like, I would just like, pray Salah and then, or namaz. I would just pray and then like, I wouldn't just do it for like a long period of time because I'd be like, oh, like, like I don't need it or whatever. Like I would only do it if I really needed something, right? Which isn't ideally what you want to do when you're praying or, doing something like that. So I really wanted to make it super open and relatable to anyone who would read my book to understand that God doesn't really need us. It's more like we need him, and we need to work on ourselves religiously in order to thrive in this dunya, basically, right? And so I wanted to basically make it super open and real with my experiences, being depressed and having anxiety and things like that, and dealing with all these hardships, but also like, connecting it with my faith and also realizing like at the end of the day, you have God and it will be okay. And that um, time will continue, it always will. And it always will work out in some way or form, whether it's something that you wanted to work in or not, it's going to be better for you in a way. And I realized, especially because of what I'm majoring in psych, is that mental health is so extremely important, and it's underlooked a lot in a lot of our cultures, especially like in the culture that I come from, and like a lot of other people I know, like a lot of the mental health aspects, it's always like basically shoved under the door type of thing. Like no one really like looks at it, no one acknowledges it. And so I really wanted to tie that in with faith because when you're very sad, upset, going through things, you feel like super like down. You're in like this dark hole, all alone, scared, struggling, and you don't know what to do. But there's always a light at the top of the hole or at the end of the tunnel, and you realize like that's your faith. That's what you have. That's what you have a choice on, either like continuing and trying to better yourself, or to you either just stay in that hole and just like everything else around you just basically crushes you. And so I wanted to incorporate that with my experiences because I've been through that path. I've been through like different experiences where I felt like all of those different things. So I wanted people to realize like we have to open our eyes and realize like what's actually happening in front of us, and we actually have to take a stand on what's right from wrong, and how mental health is super big in our religion. And they actually, it does talk about it and how we need to like make sure that we're all okay overall.
Definitely, that's such an important thing to think about.
Yeah, and especially like when I personally was reading your book, it wasn't one thing that I really liked was it wasn't all serious. You kind of like slipped in like little like I found myself giggling. You're like, oh, but you didn't hear that from me, you know. So it was like a really cool experience reading your book. It was very relatable. It was very honest, and you were being vulnerable, and that was like such a beautiful thing, like an admirable thing. So it was like a cool experience reading your book.
Thank
So,
you.
so we wanted to end off this interview by asking you and leaving our listeners with your favorite line or poem in The Sunflower's Moon.
Yay! I actually saved it because I was like, okay, I know it. Like I know it by heart, but I don't want to mess up. So I'm just gonna pull it up really quickly. You guys give me 1 second. it's actually my favorite poem. Um, and everyone always asks me like, why this one? Why not like a different one or a longer one or something that's more meaningful? And so I'm just like, no, I really like it because it's like a mysterious type of poem. Like I'll read it and then like I'll elaborate on it. But um it says, "What chance did we have? You were the moon, as I was the ocean. You pulled me closer to you, causing both the rising and falling of me." And so basically, I really like that poem because it relates to, having certain friends or people in your life, and you might think that they're very good for you, that you're in a very good time, you're on the peak of your life, and you're like, oh wow, like I have the ideal friends that I've always wanted. These people are really good for me, and then you realize like all these like bad things are happening because of these people. Even though you don't want to let go of them because they mean so much to you, you're eventually going to let go of them because they're causing the falling of you. And I feel like a lot of people, especially as you get older, like when you're 19, 18 and heading to college, like you're going to realize like a lot of these people that you're hanging out with in high school and whatnot, you're not going to ideally take them with you to college, and everything's going to be changing, and it's a very scary time. It's very uncertain, and it's just like, oh my god, like am I really alone? What's going to happen? That sort of thing. And then you realize like who's actually really there for you and who actually cares about you, which is like the most important thing. And I really like that poem because I was going through a really hard time with like really close friends, and I had to pick and choose basically, like, should I, keep these people in my life even though they're hurting me in different ways, or should I just let them go and be alone for a little bit, right? And I feel like a lot of us have felt that in certain ways or certain scenarios. And I really like that because it's just like you know, a little saying, like like it's just like the ocean and the moon, it causes like the rising and falling of both of us. Like you might never know that, if anything, like you might be hurting someone, but you are actually thinking that you're trying to raise this person up, but if anything, you might be hurting that person and causing them to crash down. So it works both ways. So I really like that because it's just an eye opener for all of us.
Yeah, it also like reminds you that everything is temporary and time, as you said earlier, time always moves on. So yeah, it was really beautiful. So
Really
Thank
has a
you.
deeper meaning.
You guys are so sweet. I love you guys.
oh,
We love you
thank
too.
you.
We wanted to thank you for coming on to the show today and having this interview with us.
And
Oh
we
my
also
god,
wanted
thank
to
you guys.
tell our listeners to check out your book, The Sunflower's Moon, which is available on Amazon. And also, we'll be having all the link for that information and your Instagram and everything, and our YouTube bio. And for our Instagram, we will let you guys know. So, once again, it's Mima.
And Hajer, reminding you that you can change the world.
Connect with us on our social media platforms.
And if you would like to be featured or have a question for us, send us an email at ogatpodcast at mudeltaalpha.org.
See you next time.
Bye.